Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. Today's video is about creating somewhere to store all of my tags that I did in the Anne Brooks 52 tag challenge. I've finished that challenge and they're all just sitting in a couple little drawers on my desk, and I really want to display them somehow. So the thought of hanging them around the room was definitely an option, but as the year has rolled on, I've decided that that's not for me. I'm a bit concerned that they will get dusty. I'm very house proud and I do lots of housework, but dust is just one of those things, and especially with textiles, it's very difficult to keep textiles clean. So I'm really thinking now I'm going to do a book to pop them in. So I've started working out the math of the book. The first decision I had to make was what size book I was going to use and how many tags per page. Now I have this cookbook. I'll just pop the tags out of the way for now. I have this cookbook. I've got about 4 of them. I picked them up at a shop that had them reduced, and I just love them because it's a firm cover. I love the cover, so even if I don't cover it, I've still got a great cover. Inside, it's a Mexican cookbook, and the pages themselves are really beautiful. They've used a paper that is quite textured, and it's a decent sort of thickness. So the pages become tags and journal cards and all sorts of bits and pieces. So the inside is very handy. And of course, then I get this great cover. Now the size of this book, even if it was, say, a book used for collaging, that spread is really good. Now let me just do a couple measurements. So if you do see books around that are these sizes in thrift shops, grab them because they're just so versatile. So the book is 8 inches across and 10 inches high. Most novels are about that 9-inch, but to have that extra inch and that extra inch this way, so 9 by 7's the average novel, or 6.5, it just gives you a beautiful working space for things like embroidery or collaging. And this particular one, I've sort of picked up a heap of them and they've sort of become my go-to book. Having said that, I have used this book in my Journal of Stitchery, the Roxy Journal of Stitchery, and it's going really well. I have told you before that I'm getting very full, so I will be pulling this apart and doing a little bit of a redesign and most likely creating a second book, but that's another day, another challenge. So if I was to use that cookbook, I would only get 4 of these. Let's grab 4 of them. I would only get 4 of the little tags on a page, and my height would be just, let me grab that book again. Okay, and this is a better way to show it. My height would be just, look, it'd be okay, but it's a little tight, especially some of my tags have little dangly bottoms. So that would need to sort of tuck under, and yeah, so in the end I decided not to use one of these. So that brought me to the possibilities of getting more tags per page, and I went looking through my stash and I found this book. Now I've had this book for a little while. I picked it up at a what do they call them? A antique fair. Now the gentleman did me a really good deal on it because it is a bit of a mess. It's got a beautiful leather cover. Inside is just heaps and heaps of pages, and it's a Shakespeare book. I'm a little undecided yet if I will use this, but I know it's the right size. So in the next week in my travels, if I find a book that is this size, maybe a children's book or something, a cookbook, I most probably will use that. Having said that, this is such a beautiful cover and it is literally falling apart that it would be nice to restore this and put some of my textile work in it. So Mr. Shakespeare, hope you don't mind, but you may be coming into my sewing world. The spine on it is long gone, and that's just like this piece of canvas that's sitting there barely holding this thing together. My plan when I purchased it was to put a new spine on it and embroider something on it, but I just haven't got around to it. And I'm thinking that this could be the perfect book for this particular project. But I'm still, do I do it, do I not? Anyway, that's I've got to think about that a little bit more. So, but I am going to create the internal pages on the measurements of that book. Actually, I'll bring it just back. So when you see the sizing, I will now get 6 tags on the page. And the height is a little better. So I can do an attachment point and they will fit nicely within it. So I know this is the size, just not sure if it's the book. Time will tell. So today's video is about prepping those pages and doing the math to work out what I need to do. So I found this piece of cotton. It's definitely not linen, it's cotton, and it's quite thick. And it had at the bottom a big piece of lace. So it's only about, where's my tape measure gone? It's like a runner that must have hung over a duchess or something, so the lace would hang down. So it's about 16.5 inches tall, and that's not including the lace, which is this. So I've actually got 2 of them. So I believe I've got enough fabric to do the job. So that's the second one. All right, so the next thing I did was I started to work out, and I've just put a bit of a notes together so that not only do I know what I'm talking about for you guys, you can actually take a bit of a screenshot. I'll just zoom in for a second, just so that you can have a little look at it. Okay, the first thing I did is I measured my book, and it is 11.5 inches wide, tall, sorry, and 8.5 inches wide. So as you can see from the recipe book, already I'm picking up just that little bit extra space. So to work out the inside pages, I want them to be a little bit smaller than the height of the book. So I'm going to do 11 inches in this fabric, and I'm going to maintain the 8.5 because I just want the fabric to sort of spill and ooze out of the side of the book. And this fabric actually has a lacy edge on it, so that is not included in the measurements. That'd be another 1/4 inch, so it's a little bit bigger again, but that's perfect because the spine or the side of it is, I like a lot of textiles coming out of it. So the piece of fabric I need to cut, we're doing the 11 inches tall again, but 17 inches wide. So what I've done now is I've worked out exactly how many pages I will need and the layout through mocking it up using paper. So I do refer here to 4 creative inserts, which will make sense in a minute when I show you my mock-up. So I'm just going to pull the camera out a little bit. Oops, the other way. That's it. Okay, so using those measurements, I got some A4 paper, and I actually created the book. It's not the measurements on the piece of paper here, it's just a piece of plain paper folded so that I know exactly what I need to do in the way of cutting my fabric. I'm sure it would have been fine, but I tend to do mock-ups of things because I'm telling you, I changed my plan here at least 4 times by having this physical little booklet. It's just a really safe way of making sure it's right, especially if you've got some precious fabric, and once it's cut and used, if you make an error, it's quite disappointing. Sorry about the shadows too. I'm filming and the sun hasn't come up yet, so I'm getting a few shadows. Okay, so I've worked out that I needed to cut 4 pieces that will fold in half. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the 4 pieces of fabric folded in half. Now my first page, I'm going to cut out of some of the scraps an additional piece of fabric. These are the creative inserts. These are going to be 2 things. They're going to be some decorative stitching throughout the book along the lines of the Roxy journal of stitchery. So I'll give myself a couple prompts and then create a piece. Now by attaching that piece to my page, it will hide in a few places the stitch down points of the 6 tags on the other side of the page. So this will make sense in a minute. So I'll just put this title page, this creative insert, to one side. So my first page will open up and I will attach 6 tags. So I've just given myself a post-it note for the 6 tags. And as they're stitched into position, that stitching will show here. But of course, the creative insert, my title page, will cover it. Okay, so that's the theory behind this extra piece. The next page will have another 6. And then as we turn it over, this will be blank because this will have the attachment points showing. And of course, if I do any other embellishing or add some more lace to the actual book, all of that stitching will be shown here. So there'll be no tags. Then this will join to hide all of the stitching that may occur. So then the next 12 tags go into position. And now I'm at the beginning. The middle of my journal, and I'm inserting, I've just stapled these into position. I'm inserting another 2 creative inserts. So I'm in the middle of the book, and they will be used to not only hide the stitching that has happened on the previous pages, but give me an opportunity to have a little play. Now, there's a lot of tags in this that some of them I just love. I love the way they came together, and I would love to pick out, say, 4 of them and expand on that particular tag. So that's sort of my thinking with my creative pieces. So as we turn the page, we're going to have another 6 tags. Then we're going to have some space of nothing, which will then allow me to join that together, slip stitch it to make the page, which will again hide all of my internal works. Then that's the last 6, leaving a few at the end on the very back page. Now the back page will have 3 from the project, and then I've posted a video where I make a 53rd tag. This was a dedication to a lovely group of ladies that were doing some slow stitch in a lifestyle village near Geelong down in Victoria. So I created a tag just for them, for their class. So I definitely want to put that in my book. So this is the 4th creative page. It will hold the 3 tags of Anne, plus the spare, plus I believe I'll have a little bit of space where I can do a little bit of my work. And of course that then attached will hide the workings coming through the book here. So that is my mock-up. That proves that I need 4 pieces of fabric at that size, and then 4 pieces of random fabric out of my scraps to create my creative inserts. So the next thing I did, now that I've worked out my math actually works, I'm not the best on math, so I definitely like to double check. As my grandmother would say, measure twice, cut once. In my world, it's like measure, 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 measure. Am I sure? Yep. No, it might change again. And yeah, that's how I roll. But Grandma was a little bit more, this is how it's going to be. She'd draft a pattern and then go for it, being that she was a dressmaker. So this is my little routine. Now my piece of fabric, what I've done next is I've measured out with a fabric pen exactly what I need to do. Now I'll just hop up and have a look at the camera to see if you can see those red lines. I might just zoom in a little bit more, and I might have to move my fabric around so you can sort of see the edges, for example. So I'll just bring that forward. So this fabric has this little decorative piece of lace attached, which I do want to keep. So I know my piece that I'm cutting needs to be 17 inches wide. So I'll just measure that across, and my 17 inches is just inside that lace. So I'm going to pretend the lace doesn't exist and measure from that. Now my height is going to be 11. which it is. Okay, so what I've then done with the red pen is I've marked it all the way along until I got to the 17 and then up to the 11. So I pretty much have nutted out the exact layout, and I've even gone to the point at the halfway line. I've marked in the fold with some dotted lines. Now I'm just going to zoom in for a second and then back out so you can see the whole piece. Okay, so just to double check before I cut, I'm going to grab 6 tags and I'm going to lay them on the fabric so that I know this will work. Now this cotton fabric has a little bit of weight to it. I was going to use calico, it's my go-to, but I just felt like this might need a little bit more weight because the tags are so heavy, and there's going to be a little bit of movement with the tags as I turn the page. They're going to flip and flop around a little bit unless I work out a way to secure them, but still being able to flip them over to see what the prompt was for the week and if I've written anything on the back. So that's my measurements, and I know that that is going to fit. So I'm pretty confident I can start prepping my fabric. Now, you can get a rotary cutter and cut it, but because I've got this little lacy edge, I want it to be a little bit more rustic. So what I'm going to do is actually just snip and rip, and that too should get me a fairly straight edge. Sometimes it doesn't, especially if the fabric is like a cheap fabric like calico can be. It can be a little whoopy when you tear it, and that's because when they've created it, it just hasn't been plumb, so to speak, just not square on the looms. But when you use some of these older fabrics, you know, they're usually pretty well made. Okay, so I'm just going to rip that to that point that I marked there. I'm then going to pop a little snip up here, just to cut in a little bit and give that a tear down. Okay, so that's page number 1 done. Beautiful. Some little threads there that will be removed as time goes on. All right, so that now folded in half is the start of my first page. Okay, so we need 4, so let's do another one. I'm just going to now measure down that height again, which was 11. I'm not sure if you're on camera there, but I think you get the general picture of what I'm doing. So I'm just going to put a little mark, and then I'm just going to measure along the top edge, 17, and of course we're coming just inside that lace. Another little mark. I won't go to the full degree of measuring it out like I did the first time because I'm pretty confident. I'll just snip that. I'm pretty confident that this will work. Okay, another little snip at the top. Tear it down a little because I want to salvage fabric from this piece. I'm just sort of going to work my tears together slowly so I know that I'm not going to be ripping too far, and then give it a little snip. Okay, so we'll just pop that to one side. That's my lovely scraps, which will make some of those inserts at a later date. I won't cut them at this stage because I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do, but I will just keep this fabric to one side, and then I can just grab it when I'm ready to actually do a project. Now this feels a little thinner. This must have been the piece they use regularly, but they must have had 2. So this one is actually like it's barely used. This one's quite thin. You can definitely feel the difference that it's been laundered. All right, so now we're just going to do, again, the 17 across the top and mark it. Just doesn't have to be exact. Like you know, textiles, the beautiful thing about them is you can have a little bit of wriggle room when it comes to working with them, which is another thing I love, because if you do make a mistake, you can usually patch something or stitch something to sort of disguise the fact that your measurement might have been a little bit out. So we'll just snip again this, and we'll snip at the 17-inch mark. Hope that's right. Yep, looks right. I am talking and working at the same time, which can be a recipe for disaster. But I'm hoping I've put enough thought into this that it will all work out. Okay, that's page number 3. Beautiful fabric. It's so good when you find these pieces and that you can use them in a project. It's just lovely, because it was at an op shop and it looked like it had been there a while, because it's quite an unusual piece, being long and quite wide. It's sort of really a bit stumped at what it would have been used for. Maybe it was something that was on an altar. I'm not sure. I'm sure it's got a fantastic story, but we will never know. We're going to give it a whole new story. So that's my height. All right, that's the end of the measuring. So number 4 is coming along. A little snip and a rip. Okay, while I'm at it, I'm going to remove this lace, because I sort of store my laces separately, and I'm pretty confident I'm not going to need it with this fabric. If I do, I can always reattach it. So I'm just going to remove that gorgeous lace. It's beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? Who knows where that'll turn up in the future, but that's a massive asset. So I'll just fold that up, put that away. Okay, scraps to one side. We've now got our book. So I'm going to have the lace at the top of my book. Pages. Being that one is thicker than the other, I'll probably alternate fabric. So the really laundered piece, and see, it's all lost a lot of its integrity, but that's all right. That's just part of it. That's recycling of fabrics. Just makes them more beautiful. I'm gonna alternate them, so the one that isn't washed as much can sort of help support the one that is. Okay, so that is the start of my book. So pages are prepared. The only thing left to do now is some creative insert that will become my title page. Looking at my scraps, there's probably not enough to prepare that now. It'll be a case I'd need to patchwork together, because these pieces are quite narrow that are left. So that will be a bit of a Frankenstein event, I'd say, to join them together to get the 4 pieces. But that's easily done, and that's the beauty of slow stitch. It allows you to use your snippets that are around and put together something completely different. Okay, I think that is it. I've now prepped my base. The only thing I need to decide is what cover I'm going to use. If I'm gonna take Mr. Shakespeare over here and help him become my new book, or keep my eyes open in some recycling thrift shops to see if I can find a cover that would be big enough to use. So we'll see. Video number 2 will show us where we're at with that, and I will start the process of attaching my tags and working out how I'm actually going to do it. So that'll be video number 2. Okay, thanks for joining me, and I will see you all soon. Bye.